at some point in time, you got to go, look, I don't have to make all the money. I've got what I need, or I've got a level where I want to sustain, and I want to work with people I want to work with. I want to have a nice day. I'm tired of dealing with somebody who treats me poorly or treats my staff poorly. That's just not who I am as a person. I can't deal with that. I don't want to deal with it. I don't have to deal with it.
I don't hire anybody with insurance experience to be a producer at Florida Risk Partners. Believe it or not, the insurance skill set is the easier part to teach than how to go out and knock on doors. And I don't care how many accounts you write like that, you're not going to outright your problems if you're not profitable on the stuff you're writing. You're just making it worse.
We all know that at some point in time, you're so much better off if you can say no, if you can walk away from something on the front end. You're getting your time back. You're helping them. You're helping yourself. It's just, there's just a piece about it. Maybe it comes with a certain level of income. You're like, I don't have to have every account, but there's a lot of peace in being able to say no.
You got to know what your hourly rate is. If you can't define your hourly rate, how do you know you're making the most effective use of your time, right? I can tell you at this point in my career, there is not a single thing I'm going to do in life that's going to be any less than $500 an hour. Period. If I can pay somebody else to do it because it's not going to generate $500 an hour for me, and I can use that time to generate $500, it is the right business decision for me to spend my time generating revenue and outsourcing that to somebody else, because I'll be cash flow positive on that hour every single time.
I'm just telling you, the small clients, not because we don't want them. I want to help everybody. That's also my problem. But they are going to have to go to the online broker. They're going to have to go to the online place, the service center, because you are not going to be able to service it. You do not have time for part-time clients. You can't service it. You can't make any money on it. And the more of those people that you have in your practice as a producer or as an agency principal, you're going to lose money. You're losing money on every small account that calls you. 10 years of insurance experience, 20, 25 years of business experience, just telling people, hey, if I were a younger producer today, I sure wouldn't follow my path. I sure would probably listen to you or listen to me about what maybe you should do and build that lifestyle.
You're a new producer. That's the best thing I can tell you. Take the trip, go, whatever it is, do it. Money can be made and lost, but you'll never get time back. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And today, we've had a couple of interesting conversations in the episodes from last week and the week before, and they were not agents. And now we have an agent, which is some of my favorite conversations to have. We have Matthew Bryan from the great state of Tennessee. And I'm interested to talk to him and hear what's going on up there, because that is one of the most interesting insurance marketplaces from a relationship and opening new opportunities perspective that I hear about when I talk to agents from all over the country. So we're going to get into that, a little bit about how he got into the industry, and probably a whole lot more. What's up, man?
I'm well, man. How are you doing?
We're doing good. It's, I'm on the glide path. I've got a whole legal pad page worth of stuff I got to do. You're my last podcast in the batch I'm recording today. So, I think we're ready to roll. I've got a lot that I got to get wrapped up before I can leave for the weekend, but I have faith in myself that I'll get it knocked out, and maybe even be able to get out of here a little early today.
Excellent. Sounds great.
So talk a little bit about your background, man. I mean, I know you have the agency now, but you're kind of a jack of not all trades, but more than one. You're not just an insurance guy. And I went back and forth a little bit about you coming on. I know you have some experience in finance and some other things. And if my memory serves me right, you have a brother that was involved with Apple somehow in country music. I remember from a few years ago when we talked. And I'm interested in hearing what that guy's up to, because it seemed like he had some cool stuff going on. But just give everybody kind of the background story of who you are and where you came from and how you got to where you're at.
Sure. Well, I'll back up before my professional career to how I grew up. And telling you earlier, I grew up in a radio station. My father was a broadcaster, and my older brother did it, and I did it. Started at about 13 years old, and I'm talking about old broadcasting, right? I'm talking about record players and reel-to-reels and cart machines. And if you know what those are, then you might have been around then. But it was a great opportunity to grow up in a small business. It was really about helping people in the community and really being a resource. And that's the way my father looked at it. He was there to help. He was always there to help. Obviously, you've got to sell some advertising to pay the bills, but he was always trying to figure out how he could help. Broadcasting sports. He's one of the first people to ever broadcast women's basketball years ago, 6-on-6 half court, which was a long time ago when they played like that.
That's a lot of people to have half court.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know about you, man, but I grew up playing cross court in the Y, and you couldn't barely play 5-on-5 that way, and that's bigger than half court.
Exactly. I don't know the rules, but it was definitely different. But it was just his willingness to help. So, fast forward, we grew up. I was working during high school at the radio station, but I got to see all of his clients, right? And they were banks, they were insurance agents who I got exposed to. There were pharmacies, there were car dealers, there were pizza restaurants, and so I got exposure to all these different businesses that I thought were unique. And so I always loved the bankers, always liked the financial advisors. Had a really good relationship with an Edward Jones agent there for a long time. It became a good family friend, but that kind of, I guess, it piqued my interest in finance. And so I ended up going to college and getting a degree in finance and did some other things, but I ended up in commercial banking. So that's where I really got a lot of knowledge, and it's where I kind of fell into insurance as well. A lot of my clients were independent insurance agents, so I would bank these guys, and I knew about their deposit accounts and operating accounts and lines of credit, and I got to see some purchases happen, a buy and a sell. And I always thought that was interesting. I couldn't figure out how to buy. I always say this. I couldn't figure out how to buy a bank, so I bought an insurance agency. But it was really, it's really my clients that were friends of mine that would always say, "Hey, Matthew, you ever thought about insurance? You'd be good at it." And I said, I haven't really thought about it, but maybe something we talk about in the future. So you fast forward, and that's in fact what happened. I'm over there in banking, and one of my clients is like, "I'm going to be retiring in a few years. Do you think we could get together?" And I said, "I'd love to." And I did a little stint at Merrill Lynch. So I was a licensed Series 7, Series 66 financial advisor with Merrill. And I loved that. I loved the team I worked with, but ownership was always something I was intrigued about. So I ended up at the insurance agency, and then my brain just took off, and I'm like, "Oh, I can buy some more insurance agencies." So I acquired another one, then I acquired another one, and then I acquired another one, or a book of business. And I've just been learning over the last 10 years in the P&C world, and I learn something new every day. There's some really good agents out there. I think there's some really good coverage guys out there that are better than me. But I think in a general sense of a conversation, I can have a really good conversation with somebody about banking, insurance, investments, real estate. I've been a real estate investor for about 20 years. And so it goes back to Gary Hitson, who helped me in the business, and that's the agency that I acquired. But he said, "Matthew, you got an insurance license. You have a license to be nosy." He said, "You need to ask a lot of questions." And I just took that to heart. He's like, "You really need to interview people and figure out what they got going on." So that's kind of how I got into business is really just out cold walking and knocking on doors. And, when I went to the bank, they said, "Hey, take a yellow pad, go drive around, spend about a half a morning driving around, write down some business names and some addresses and bring it back to us, and we'll talk about them." And I was like, "Okay." So I go do that, and they start teaching me about, "Hey, look, you wrote this down. This person's already a client. Let's see what they have and see if there's opportunities to cross sell, this client, or see if they've been active at all. Maybe they've got a savings account and there's nothing else there." So they just taught me, how to look at the accounts. And it's the same thing we do in commercial insurance. So that's what I figured out. Commercial insurance is really akin to commercial banking. And so it really made sense for me. And so my favorite thing to do at the agency is to have high level conversations with other business owners about their business. And we ask lots of questions. When I'm doing my job, I ask about insurance, but I'm like, "Who's your CPA? Who's your bookkeeper? Who's your banker? Who's your attorney?" Like, I want to know who's helping you make decisions. And it's really helped me. And then you just learn. I mean, I'm sure you've written accounts that you wouldn't write again, and you've worked with people that you wouldn't work with again. And we all do it. And so right now our agency is in this transition to trying to write better business, or trying to write our ideal client, and quit trying to be helpful to everyone, because ultimately we're hurting ourselves, hurting our agency, and we're not really helpful to the client either.
So if you're a producer out there listening to this, listen to what Matthew said, because those are textbook questions that you want to know. You want to know who the attorney is. You want to know who the accountant is. You want to know who the bookkeeper is. And I'm going to challenge you to drill down another level and ask them, where do they get their payroll? Where do they get their credit card processing? Where do they buy their office equipment? Who's their managed services provider? Where do they buy their office supplies? And the reason you want to ask those questions is those are the people that are calling on other middle market companies, just like the one you're sitting in. And now you're building your referral network with people that can get you into the companies that are the exact same shape and size. And I mean, that's something that I personally talk about all the time, because I think it's really, really important. Number one, so that you can build your book. Number two, so that you're recruiting for the agency. Because if those people are in those kind of jobs and successful, they're going to be the absolute best people to bring into your agency as a producer down the road. It's one of the reasons why I don't hire anybody with insurance experience to be a producer at Florida Risk Partners. Believe it or not, the insurance skill set is the easier part to teach than how to go out and knock on doors. I can't make somebody driven. I mean, I can, but that's not who I need to have as a producer. If I've got to prod you to go out and do your marketing drops or dial the phone, you're not somebody that's a born producer. You're somebody that just has a job in sales and probably wishes they were doing something else. So go down to that secondary degree of who the other service providers are, and I can promise you, you will find gold there.
Totally agree with that. I mean, that's great advice, and I've heard you speak about it before. But when you drill down to those other, I don't know, key contacts for your clients, you're getting into people that can help you in your business, no doubt about it.
100%, man. And I mean, I think the thing is too, there's key to that, because you hit on it. You're trying to write your ideal client. Like, look, that's number one thing I tell anybody in Killing Commercial is you got to define who your ideal client is first. And then that's what you go after, nothing else. Those are the blinders that you put on. We're all tempted. Every single one of us is going to write stuff that isn't, and then we're going to pay the price for years to come, depending on how long it stays on the books. But the secondary piece of that is, once you make those contacts, you have to train those people. You have to make sure they understand what the ideal client is that you're looking for. And so, you know, I think that, again, that's someplace where we tend to miss, and it's really easy to do on the front end and harder to do on the back end. But I talk to so many producers out there that are in this death spiral of just handling referral business that's not really what they want, but it's giving them activity, and they don't want to upset their referral partner because they're referring them to business. And my point is, well, they're referring you the crap you don't want to write anyhow. So how good are they as a referral partner to begin with? Have the conversation, say, look, I really appreciate the activity, but we need to hone this in a little bit, because quite honestly, I'm probably not making you look the best because I'm not set up to help this type of an account. That happens to us a lot with like the smaller business stuff. And, you know, people listen to the podcast and they'll say, hey, I've got a client that's going to relocate down there, or they have a relative who has a business down there, and they'll refer the business, and I'll be the one typically that'll pick up the phone and call. And I find out like it's a 2-man floor company that subs out 95% of their work. And it's like, do you really listen to the podcast? I mean, why are you referring that over? And so I have to have that conversation when I get on the phone with the person who owns the business and say, look, really appreciate the fact that you're giving us an opportunity, but in complete transparency, I'm not going to do the best job for you. My agency is not set up to handle small business. Let me refer you to somebody locally who can handle exactly what you need and is really, really good at it. And that is the best value I can bring to you. But if I brought you into my agency, not that I wouldn't want you as a client, it's just, I can't. I'm not set up. I don't even have the right insurance companies, honestly, in appointments to handle the type of business you're in. So it's really important when you're dealing with referral partners to take the time to educate them on the front end. It saves you a lot of heartburn on the back.
Yeah, totally agree. And you know, I think we're all struggling right now with small accounts. I think the hard market has caused us all to see. You see the gaps in your agency. You see the brokenness in your process.
Look, I'll be the first person to admit, man, I don't live in an ivory tower. Like, we're going through this in our agency right now. And one of the things I actually think I may have done a shop talk on it. I don't remember. If I didn't, I need to. But we just went through a client tiering process, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and we're coding them that way in the agency management system. That determines what suite of services they get, how much attention they pay. And the reality is we have some that are bronze. That's really not what we want to write. We shouldn't even have a bronze level if it were up to me. But COVID made that happen, okay? Because we couldn't go out and prospect. And so I think a lot of us went into fight or flight mode when you couldn't knock on doors like you used to. Inbound started coming in. I think we need to we need to call the book, right? And so I'm actually of the mindset that now that we've established what the standard is to be in each one of those brackets, we physically code the clients that are in the agency management system into the appropriate bracket. And then my decision is going to be, is it worth the 2% just to have all of this stuff go to the service centers and we don't touch it in the agency anymore?
Exactly. We're doing the same thing. And again, you said platinum to bronze or what have you. Our client segmentation is 1 to 4, right? And so I've defined what tier 1 is, what tier 2 is, 3 and 4. We've got them in the agency, but I'm not writing a new tier 4 today. Okay.
Correct.
And so what we did at Merrill Lynch was, you go watch the best brokers in the country. These guys managed $1 billion that I used to work with, really, really sharp guys. And they did client segmentation every year. They culled their book every single year. And what they did is, again, you've only got so much time. You can only have 100 clients or 200, whatever your number is. And so the only way for you to make more money or for you to grow your practice, whether you're a producer or the agency, you can only grow by working with larger clients, more revenue per client, more revenue per policy clients than you did the year before. And so they take the bottom 20% and they cull it off and they say, here's a junior broker, or like you just said, it's going to a call center. They would say, there's no velocity on this money. We've had these accounts for years. There's just nothing. We've done everything we can do. There's no new policies. There's no new, in the financial world, it was no new stocks, no new mutual funds, no new flow into the company. And so they would cull that out and they'd all start going to the call center. And that's going to be the thing. I'm just telling you, the small clients, not because we don't want them. I want to help everybody. That's also my problem. But they are going to have to go to the online broker. They're going to have to go to the online place, the service center, because you are not going to be able to service it. You do not have time for part-time clients. You can't service it. You can't make any money on it. And the more of those people that you have in your practice as a producer or as an agency principal, you're going to lose money. You're losing money on every small account that calls you.
Yep, I agree. And I've talked about this a few times, but the most interesting story I think I've heard of a successful producer was a guy who only had 25 accounts in his book. Every single one of them was at least $100,000 in revenue to the agency, but he never quit prospecting. He always prospected. And when he found one that was bigger than the smallest one in his book, he would add that. And the smallest one would get culled. It would be given to a junior producer. He would split commission for a period of time so that junior producer could learn. But that helped them build their book, and it helped him keep his where he wanted it to be. And I mean, how basic and easy does that really sound, man? I think we make this stuff way too complicated sometimes.
I think no is a complete sentence, and we forget that. We forget that no, and we need to do it. I'm guilty. I'm totally guilty.
Every one of us is guilty of it. And especially, I don't know how you started your agency out, but I can tell you how I started mine. A lot of times when people, we get around the first of the year, my wife and I go down to Key West right after the first, because it's our actually favorite time of the year. The weather is absolutely perfect and the fishing is good. The people are like, oh man, had to get down there after the 1-1s. No, not really. I don't have a huge 1-1. What do you mean? Well, when I opened my agency, I needed money to come in July, August, September, and October. By the time 1-1 rolled around, I was taking my foot off the gas a little bit to try and relax. But you make so many decisions about what to write because you just want to make sure you're bringing money in, period. And you don't realize that you're really cash flow underwriting the business, and it's not the kind of business that you want. And ultimately, you have to have hard conversations with people that have, in all practical purposes, been loyal clients for the most part, but you're just not making any money. And I don't care how many accounts you write like that. You're not going to outright your problems if you're not profitable on the stuff you're writing. You're just making it worse.
Yep. Yeah, and you said you're talking about your business. We're doing the same thing. I feel like I've been here, doing this for 10 years, and I might know what I'm doing now after 10 years, and I'm on a path. I'm on a glide path to get where I want to be. So I've spent so much time just working hard, gathering clients, not the ideal client. I've let the business happen to me instead of me happening to it, and that's been the issue. So anybody I bring on board, I mean, it's funny as a producer. If I bring them on board, I'm like, hey, look, we're going to jump on board with David Carruthers, and you're going through this system because that's what you need to do to get ahead. And I could just share my story and my mistakes with somebody and prevent that stuff from happening. But I wouldn't look at me and go, wow, let's just follow what Matthew did. I can tell you what not to do.
Well,
It's
and
my
that's,
best advice.
honestly, being completely transparent, I'm the same way, man. I mean, what makes what we've built at Killing Commercial so powerful isn't the fact that I can teach the process. It's the fact that you've got 1,000 other producers in there across 200 and some agencies now that are going to tell you all the things that are working for them and the mistakes they've made too. So it really amplifies probably what your and my approach would be to training a producer on what not to do, and sprinkles in some of the stuff that's working now. And the nice part for me is I get to learn from everybody else's experiences too. I take as much from the community as I give to it just by reading what everybody else is dealing with and going through and learning what's happening in other geographies and everything else. Because, Florida, even though we're a peninsula, we're also kind of an island when it comes to insurance. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not going to be the same here as it is everywhere else. Now, dealing with people is similar. I'm not even going to say that's the same, because one of the things I alluded to when we opened up was the unique market in Tennessee. And one of the things that I always hear from agents in that area is how tough it is to get in the door. Like, everybody that I talk to, and specifically, I think Nashville is probably a little bit more progressive just because of the growth and people coming in from the outside. But the people I talk to that are in and around the Knoxville area and in Chattanooga and some of the more established, networks in the state, they tell me it's absolutely brutal to prospect. What's your take on that?
Well, it's funny. I talked to a producer last week who's got a nice book of business. Love to bring him on my team. He's well established, and we're just talking about what he does and how he writes. And his market is about 2.5 hours one way in the car, and another 2.5 hours the other way to write his niche. And I mean, this guy's burned out. I mean, he's 40,000 miles a year on his vehicle.
Boom.
And to your point, I mean, he has to go that far to do it. Got a nice book. He's probably got a $5 million book of business, and but man, he has earned every penny of it. And we've got a challenging market here. It's not the whole state. It's amazing, apparently, how many carriers we have in Tennessee. It's so competitive. Home, auto, commercial.
That's the other thing I was going to say.
Carriers.
The number of carriers you guys have just blows me away from the admitted market perspective. I mean, I salivate when I see that.
So
and you throw in the direct writers like Federated and the other ones that are in Century that are running around.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. And so we have one unique market that is similar to a Florida, which is the Sevier County market, where you've had all the fires and that kind of thing. You got the short-term cabin rentals. You have all those, amusement
That's
rides.
Gatlinburg, Dollywood area.
Exactly, like
yeah.
Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge. It's very similar to it. It's lots of E&S. It's lots of specialty. It's a really hard market in Sevier County. There's a lot of PC10, PC9, and so it's the closest to Florida we can get from an insurance market here. But it's in my back door. We have our clients back up to that, and so it's the closest we can get to it. And I don't begrudge you guys at all. I can't believe how you all have been able to do this in Florida in such a hard market. I mean, it's just every single thing.
Well, in my life, I don't know any different, man. It's been that way for 20 years. So it's kind of like I wouldn't know what to do if I came to Tennessee and I actually was like, We have to compete on price, obviously, because people are sensitive to that. But the reality is, I mean, that's maybe one of the reasons why I gravitated more to leading with workers' comp, because it's an area where businesses have a ton of exposure, but there is no price advantage. It's literally state administered pricing. So the premiums are the same. I could go to 100 carriers with the same payrolls by class code. And the only thing that's going to be different is maybe the dividend, or if it's a retrospectively rated program, the factors they use for that. But there is no competitive advantage. So you're forced to sell on value. And then we just bring the rest of the stuff in as a result of us leading with what we can do on the comp, which, you know, it does have a tie into the fleet. If they have, you know, comp claims, there's probably had been some auto accidents and things that go with it. But I've just never I think that the fact that we are as casualty heavy as we are in my agency is what has allowed us to scale. If I was going after condo associations, if I was going after, you know, large property schedules, it's cutthroat, man. Like you win and lose deals based on the percentage on the premium finance agreement on some of that stuff.
It's a race to the bottom. I mean,
it is 100%.
It's a race to the bottom. So,
and I would love to see the retention numbers on those books too, because, you know, a lot of it also gets to be political. You've got, you know, a condo association, there's an ex-agent, a relative of an agent, or a current agent, the price sits on the board.
right. No, I looked at that, and again, somebody told me 10 years ago, my background, banking, real estate, I financed a bunch of houses. I've done a bunch of subdivisions. I have invested in a lot. I've got some short-term rentals. I've got some long-term rentals. I understand that market. And I'm like, okay, that's a market I understand. Maybe you should go after it. I talked to a couple agents that I know, like, and trust, and they're like, hey, look, that's monoline business. You got this package. There's no comp with a condo association. There's no auto with a condo association. There's none of this stuff. He said, you're just waiting for the next hailstorm. You know, somebody's got to ride it. He said, but I think you need to do something different. And so that's the reason why I have some of that on the books, but I don't have a big book of it because of those reasons. Like, man, that's just a sitting duck.
Yep. 100%. 100%. So where do you guys specialize now? Like you talked about finding your ideal prospect. What's that look like?
So it's a great question. And we're trying to, you know, further identify it right now, but I would say it's professional. So we're working on our lawyer's legal book right now. And I want to grow. And again, these aren't large accounts, but for me, they're small to middle market, but they're also tier one clients on the personal line side. Okay. So your veterinarians, your optometrists, your chiropractors, you're
also really good on the life side too. Life and disability.
Exactly. But these are the kind of people that you want to work with. You know, I say it on the personal line side, your ideal client's a 25 to 54 married couple. That's your ideal client. And so we tend to work with business owners, and then we end up writing their personal accounts, home, auto, life. And again, just like the hard market's done on the commercial side of things, we can't take on a monoline personal lines client. I can't just write your motorcycle. I can't just write your RV or your boat.
Motorcycle monoline would be the worst anyhow. Like I've got people where we ran a Harley campaign one time on YouTube when we were launching our personal lines, because we had Progressive and Dairyland and a couple others that said they wanted, you know, motorcycle insurance. And what I found was most people don't want to insure their motorcycle right. Like I had people that were arguing with me. We would come up with quotes that were going to be like $93 a month on a $35,000 Harley. And the guy's like, well, I'm only paying $17 a month now. And I'm like, that was a major wake up moment for me. Like, why are we screwing around with this stuff?
And again, I'm a motorcycle guy too. I mean, that's the funny thing. I've got 2 motorcycles personally. And so it's just like, you just have to go back. And so now I'm working on these professional lines that we want to write. And then I want to match this up to my lifestyle. You know, whether you're a producer or a principal who's trying to, again, what's the point of owning a business if you got to be here 70 hours a week?
100%.
At some point in time, you got to go, look, I don't have to make all the money. I've got what I need, or I've got a level where I want to sustain. And I want to work with people I want to work with. I want to have a nice day. I'm tired of dealing with somebody who treats me poorly or treats my staff poorly. That's just not who I am as a person. I can't deal with that. I don't want to deal with it. I don't have to deal with it. And so I'm trying to match it up to my lifestyle right now. So these professional clients that I want to deal with, how many COIs do they need from us? Very little. very little.
Right.
We'll send something to a landlord. And again, we've learned. So now what I'm doing is I'm shifting, and I know my minimums for contractors. Contractors are the bane of my existence, um, sometimes, and it's the smaller ones. You might have done this in your book of business. I would trust that you have. But we looked at our commercial book and we're like, hang on a minute here. 50%, 40% of our clients in our commercial book make up 10% of the revenue. So if I give up 10%, that's really small accounts, right? If I give up 10% of my revenue, I could lose half my clients, and I've hardly lost anything at all. But I lost all the headaches. I lost all those COIs, to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that needs one. And then with this hard market, here comes all these requirements that you guys are seeing. Everybody needs a waiver. Everybody needs primary,
Well,
not
and
contributory.
it's not even that. I mean, yes, it is that. But in addition to that, you have every single one of them shopping against you. So if you have a book, and we don't thankfully have a ton of small contractors, most of our contractors are at least 50 grand in premium and up, because that's where I had originally set the minimums. But I'm speaking from what I hear from my peers and what we're experiencing in the agency. Number one, reshops are brutal, and these guys are wanting to nickel and dime you on go into every freaking market you can. And let's call it what it is, man. Like, I know you're an Erie agent. We're an auto owner's agency. That's our bread and butter. If they're not going to be the ones who do it for us, then we're probably not going to go anywhere else, because we already know we're going to get the coverage, the endorsements, and the pricing we need. I don't really, if you're already there, I'm probably not going to go shop you to a bunch of other places if you're not the appropriate size client. We've navigated the certificate issue by having e-certs online, so we don't do a ton of issuing unless it requires special language. But then the other problem that I'm seeing right now is just all of the inbound stuff, man. And how do you navigate your way around that? I'm thankful that the agency doesn't hinge our reputation on Google reviews. So if I was heavy in personal lines where people were going to go to Google and see what kind of reviews we have, I would probably be more cognizant of telling people no, not necessarily telling them no, but I would probably be more open to trying to deal with them, so we at least got a positive review. But my goodness, man, somebody who's never talked to you before, they're not a loyal client of your agent, they call you up, they've already talked to 6 other people, and you say, I apologize, but we're probably not going to be able to help you. And to listen to them fly off the handle, it's like, what are you doing, man? I just gave you time back in your life. You're willing to call me and waste both of our time to go through the exercise of quoting this when I'm probably going to be blocked everywhere anyhow. Most people don't even understand how the game's played. They think that it's all about going, it's why I don't write car dealers or general contractors. They haggle for a living. I know they're going to haggle with me. I'm not even going to waste my time. You're not going to buy on my value, so why waste our time going back and forth on getting you to the lowest premium?
Agreed. And I think it's growth, right? You've obviously 20 years, you've been doing this longer than I have, but we all know that at some point in time, you're so much better off if you could say no. If you can walk away from something on the front end, you're getting your time back. You're helping them. You're helping yourself. It's just, there's just a piece about it. Maybe it comes with a certain level of income. You're like, I don't have to have every account, but there's a lot of peace in being able to say no.
Yeah, and the thing is, man, it's funny. When I launched the agency, I had lunch with the guy who actually got me into the insurance industry, who is massive. They're probably over $2 billion in valuation or revenue now, publicly traded on NASDAQ. But I was literally the first outside commercial producer they hired when we launched back in 2004. And he said, David, he goes, what do you want out of life, man? Do you want a lifestyle agency or do you want a high growth enterprise? And I said, well, I got 4 kids at the house. I want a lifestyle agency that's convertible to a high growth enterprise if and when I ever want that, but I'm never going to be the guy who sells out a relationship with my kids to go deal with somebody who dropped me like a bad habit. If we make one mistake or we, or we're $50, more expensive on homeowners or whatever else.
Right.
I'm not going to miss ball practice. I'm not going to miss gymnastics. I'm not going to miss school conferences. We're going to take trips on long weekends. We're going to go on nice vacations, because I have a fundamental belief that I've got, by the time your kids are 18 years old, they've spent 98% of the time they're going to spend with you in their entire life. I might as well enjoy it now, or what's the point?
Yeah, no, well, so people don't know this about me, and I say it, and you'll forget it. But when I was 27 years old, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I
Mm.
have MS, and so some part of my adult life after that has always been about making sure that my family's taken care of, and I'm focused on, spending time with them. But I've built between the office and real estate and other things that I can be done tomorrow. But my whole point was not to amass some big net worth. It was to make sure my kids were taken care of and my wife was taken care of. I mean, I've even made sure, my house, it's kind of funny. My house has always been a really good tool for me to build wealth, because I've either not paid anything when I got started when I was 23 years old, and I go back and joke about paying $250 a month to rent somewhere, and I pay, that was power, water, cable included. I could sit on the bed and do my dishes at the same time. And I was able to get ahead because I never had a lot of overhead. So you fast forward to today, I've got my master on the main. I have my garage on the main. My hallways are handicap accessible. My bathrooms are handicap accessible. I don't have to move. I don't have to downsize. I've just been able to do things like that because, again, not that I don't care, but I kind of got over myself. And if you have a diagnosis of some sort, you tend to think about what's important. If you got cancer tomorrow, David, and they said, "Hey, David, you got, I don't know, 12 months. You can have some great 12 months. You're going to be perfectly healthy for 12 months, but then it's over." So what would you do? Would you go sell a bunch of policies? I don't think you would. And so that's my point, is what is it that you should do? And so to me, it's taking care of my family. It's taking care of my team here. It's focusing on, the business. Obviously, I know about, your dog passing, this past week, which is really tough. I've got two in the office. They were,
Oh, I see them. They've been hovering.
They're rolling around here. One just walked out the door. But it's like, if somebody comes in my office and they don't like my dog, they probably won't want to buy insurance from me, because
Yep.
they're here, and they're here for me, and they're here for my staff. So I just think that there's other things that go on in life. And again, this is just 10 years of insurance experience, 25 years of business experience, just telling people, hey, if I were a younger producer today, I sure wouldn't follow, my path. I sure would probably listen to you or listen to me about what maybe you should do and build that lifestyle, book a business or agency.
You can do it simultaneously, man. That's the whole
Absolutely.
thing. You don't have to pick one or the other. You can have both. You just have to be judicious with your time. When you're at work, be focused at work. When you're not, be focused at being the best dad, spouse, whatever that you can be there. And I mean, I've always felt like I've had a pretty good barometer of where I needed to be when, but we take our eye off the ball every now and again. And I mean, it's been I don't remember, I think it's been 3 years ago now that I had a stroke. I was on a Zoom call on a new business meeting, and I look over and left side of my face is drooped down, and I've got slobber all down the front of my shirt. And I'm like having a conversation trying to close a deal, and I realized something's not quite right. So I had a doctor's appointment that was literally coming up after that. I felt okay, probably shouldn't have driven, risk management 101, but A, by the way, people closed the deal, so there's that. But B, I ended up going to my doctor's office, and I said, and my blood pressure was like 190, 100, 200 and something over 100. And like, it was bad. It was really, really bad.
Right.
And the lady who took it said, "I'll be right back." The doctor comes in and says, "You need to go across the street to the emergency room. We think you're having a stroke." And I'm like, "Oh no, I think I probably had that about an hour and a half ago." I was on a call, and I noticed, he's like, "Then it's even more important that you get over there now, because you're susceptible to have it be even worse." And I mean, in an hour's time, I went from being on a Zoom to being laid up in a CT scan with 15 people that had clipboards around me, every wire in the world coming out of my body. And, it all precipitated from the fact that I had found a tumor on my rib cage. I didn't know what it was, and I had freaked myself out about it. And that's the whole reason I had the doctor's appointment, was to find out what this lump was that was on my side. And I just got in my own head and stressed out about it to the point that it forced my blood pressure up, and it caused me to have it. But then, then you deal with the unknown of, okay, we need to go have this thing removed and see what's going on with that. So then I had to have that surgery. Thankfully, I didn't have any, ramifications from the stroke itself. I came out of that unscathed, but my goodness, man, like I stepped back and said, okay, that could have all ended today. What would I left? What was the legacy? What are the memories? Is it that dad stayed at the office till 7:30 again tonight? Not that I was doing that on a regular basis, but I just needed to have somebody jerk a knot in my rear end and say, all right, man, you know what your priorities are. You need to get them back on the radar. And it did. And I'll never move from that again. And, I feel very confident that if my life ended tomorrow, I've milked every single day out of it that I possibly could. I have zero regrets other than I should have done that a lot earlier. So if you're a new producer, that's the best thing I can tell you. Take the trip, go, whatever it is, do it. Money can be made and lost, but you'll never get time back.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's what you're doing when you're, again, I've got, and some of this is just, it comes across through life. And I've got some people that mow my yard. I'm not paying this guy to mow my yard. I'm buying time. I am buying time. I've got a lady that cleans our house. Fantastic. Love her. I'm buying time. That's what I'm doing. And so that's what I would tell somebody. If you're a young producer, you're starting out, I tell everybody this, you're going to have to put in the time. You're 50, 60 hours a week. You're going to have to put those in. You just got to decide which hours they are. Don't miss the time with the family. So if you got to pop up on Saturday morning, again, there was lots of times where I would get up in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock. My whole family's asleep. I'm not missing a beat because they're not awake.
No, and you're also getting 10 times more done from 5 to 8.
No doubt.
You're going to get done the rest of the day, man.
No doubt. I mean, you could read every self-help book and watch every TikTok you want to watch, but ultimately, if you go watch some of the most successful people out there, they are like clockwork when it comes to their schedule and their exercise and just time blocking on a calendar. And we all learn this over time, but the sooner you can do it, to your point, the sooner you can do it, the better off you'll be.
Yeah, I tell people, like every time I talk to them about time blocking or whatever else, I actually had the conversation with somebody this morning. I live and die by my calendar. I am like Ron Burgundy with the teleprompter. Whatever's on the teleprompter, he reads it. Whatever's on my calendar, I do it. And I mean, I don't want this to sound the wrong way. My kids are going to get time with me, but I block that time on my calendar. Are they going to get it anyhow? Yes. But for me, it makes it intentional. It makes that time there and it's reserved and it has a very specific purpose. Every Wednesday morning before we get to the office, you can look on my calendar and I have a breakfast slot blocked with my middle son. Since the time he was 8 years old, he's 18 now, we have gone to breakfast every Wednesday morning. He gets an hour to an hour and a half without having to compete for my attention. And we can have conversations and build our relationship. And I have that same situation with every one of my kids. And I make it that way so that it's not that it's any more or less of a priority. It's just the intentionality behind it that says this is important enough. It makes it on the calendar and it's guaranteed to happen if it's there. I will not cancel that meeting because a client needs something or anything else. It's just not going to get shifted. That's where my priorities are. But again, to your point, that's one of the reasons why I tell younger producers and even older ones that, especially when they're wanting to get into middle market, you got to know what your hourly rate is. If you can't define your hourly rate, how do you know you're making the most effective use of your time, right? I can tell you at this point in my career, there is not a single thing I'm going to do in life that's going to be any less than $500 an hour, period. If I can pay somebody else to do it because it's not going to generate $500 an hour for me, and I can use that time to generate $500, it is the right business decision for me to spend my time generating revenue and outsourcing that to somebody else because I'll be cash flow positive on that hour every single time.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we doing the same thing in the office. I'm sitting here looking at payroll, and if you take your annual payroll, whether it's $500,000, $1 million, or whatever you've got, and you can do this to a salary as well. You just take that thing, divide it by 2080, and come up with your hourly cost. Okay, that's not a profit, that's not other overhead, but just on wages, you can go and look at your number. Okay, and then you got to realize, hey, you got to multiply that by 2 in order to make a profit. Okay, because you and I know what commission splits need to be in order to make a profit. When you start servicing it and when you start calculating overhead, you don't have a whole lot of margin. Again, talking banking, talking insurance. We are in the high volume, low margin business. The carriers are in that business. The banks are in that business. And it's really, it's a slow way to get rich. Okay. I've got this get rich slow scheme, David. I want to share it with you. It's really about growing this book over time and finding your ideal clients. And yeah, you're exactly right. And that's what the hard market just showed you, that you're spending all this time on your tier 4 clients or your bronze clients. Today, you wouldn't even write them. You got them in the books because you've inherited it. You wrote it a long time ago, whatever. You wouldn't even you'd have a really nice conversation with somebody and say, look, we're not a good fit. Let me introduce you to another agent that I know who can help you. And the sooner you can do that, the better off you'll be. But we're all looking at this stuff, and it's predicated by the hard market. And I'm meeting you, knowing other agents, friends of mine. I can't believe that's probably the best part of this job for me. In addition to my clients, is the relationships that I built with random people all over the country, from this conference, that conference. I got best friends. I've got people that we meet, once a month, get together, 25 agents. We go once a year. You were down there last year when we came to Florida, had you come over and talk to us. I mean, these are some of my friends, and I would have never been able to do that had I not thought this through, planned, gone through some conferences, worked hard, and really wanted to be a better agent.
Well, and the thing is too, man, the net of it is you're competitors in some cases with some of these people. I know I am,
Sure.
but I think that there's always this in the back of your mind, especially, if you're like me and grew up playing sports, it's a me versus you. I have to win, and if it's not me, everybody else is against me or a competitor or whatever else. And I think that one of the best things that I've taught myself over my time in the insurance industry is it's okay to be friends with the people you're competing against on the streets every day. And I think that the extreme version of that is if you think about Tom Cruise and Kevin Bacon in A Few Good Men. These guys are buddies playing basketball, whatever else. And then they go to court and they're viciously going after each other. And then it's over. And the next thing you know, boom.
Well, yeah. So it's funny. This happened today. What a great, funny story. So I had an insurance agent friend contact me today who was on the city council, and he says, "Could I put a sign over here in your office parking lot or the yard here next to the courthouse, which is where our office is?" And I said, "Yeah." So now I have another insurance agent sign who's running for city council in my parking lot, and I don't care. He's a nice
100%.
guy. He's a nice guy. He wins some, we win some, we swap customers. All we do is you buy me lunch, I'll buy you lunch. It's not a big deal. Again, I've had situations like that, and I see people get really angry about losing an account to somebody else, and I'm like, send me an AOR. I want to send it to you, because you know what's going to happen? I'm going to get 10 more accounts tomorrow, and it's not going to matter. I've sent so much stuff to people. Erie's really weird. You don't have them in Florida, but Erie Insurance, great company. We love them. They're really weird about transfers. There is no AORs in Erie's world. Okay.
Right.
It's you call the other agent, you all talk about it. Maybe you come to an agreement. If you don't, you go to your sales manager or the state manager. It's a really awkward process. They should have a better process for it. But my thing is just to send it. I just send it. I just transfer it. I've never fought any other agents. I've never fought anybody about it, and so I just transfer it over. And for me, it's worked out because I don't create any enemies. There's lots of great agents out there. There's plenty of agents that are better than me. And if a client wants to move, just let them go. I mean, just let them move. There's a heck of a chance they would come back to you if you're nice. And there's a really good chance they don't come back if you're a jerk about it. And so that's another thing for a producer to really realize is, you got to kill them with kindness. When you win an account, be thankful that you won it. When you lose an account, be grateful that you had it. And a guy that taught me, that got me into the business, Gary Hitson, would always say, "Hey, Matthew, when you lose an account, just realize that they're probably going to have a claim with that new agency tomorrow." If you had a scenario where they've been maybe loss free and you've had a good, account with them, and it's been profitable, and they leave you, be thankful that you had it. Be thankful that you had that account, because I just don't think there's any kind of positive that come out of being ugly with another agent. So,
You never know, man. You refer stuff to me, and if I find stuff in your area, it would certainly get referred to you. And I mean, we're not even remotely close to being competitors, but it's just amazing what happens when you take time and focus on building relationships. And you also learn, like, I don't feel like there's anybody on the planet that I can't learn from at this point.
Agreed.
And I think there's too many times where we allow our earnings and our tax returns or whatever to make us feel like we're at the top of the heap. And I can promise you, people, there is always somebody out there that can beat you down beyond a shadow of a doubt. So be humble in what you do. But listen, I know we're coming up on the hour. Anything else you wanted to share before we wrap this thing up?
No, I just, again, I think these types of visits, calls help everybody. I think masterminding with a group of people, whether it's, online or a small group, I love being able to reach out to other agents like yourself. And again, it's one of those things where, hey, look, I really shouldn't be writing this account, but David Carruthers has got the experience. I'm just sending it to him. That's the best thing for the client. So again, I tell my staff, jokingly in some ways, but everybody understands what this means. I want to be the Chick-fil-A of insurance. I want everybody to recognize us for thank you, please, you're welcome, my pleasure, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and that we go above and beyond. Chick-fil-A is built around they call it second level service or second mile service. They just take it a step further than everybody else. So you do that, and then you remember who your priorities are. You got a priority to the agency, you got a priority to the client, and you got a priority to the carrier. And if you do right by all those three, you will not have any issues sleeping at night.
100%, man. Well, listen, this has actually been a really good conversation, and I hope everybody paid attention, because it wasn't about insurance. It was more about life. And if we can teach you the things that we've learned to make that better for you, the insurance part's going to come and be a whole lot easier. So thanks so much for taking time to chat with me today, man. I really appreciate it and really enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely.